Ah yes, one of the great Gothic novels of all time. And one of these films understood that. So we've been reviewing every Oscar Best Picture winner in history on the channel lately, and we've reached Rebecca, the winner from 1940. However, coincidentally, and not due to scheduling on my part in any way, we have reached it just as Netflix releases their remake with Lily James in it, one of my favourite actors. Well, if that didn't sound like a good time, then I wouldn't have been so disappointed. So Rebecca's a 1938 novel by Daphne Du Maurier, about a young, unnamed woman who, working as a lady's companion, that's not as dirty as it sounds, meets Maxim de Winter, a widower in Monte Carlo, and marries him after he proposes within 2 weeks of meeting her. However, when they return to Manderley, his estate, she finds herself living in the shadow of his dead wife, Rebecca, still much beloved by everybody who knew her, especially the terrifying Mrs. Danvers who runs the household. The dark secrets surrounding Rebecca converge around the new Mrs. De Winter as she tries to adjust to her new life, and the darkly gothic tale takes a series of twists and turns along the road to Manderley eventually burning down. It's not really a spoiler. That she mentions that at the very start. So today we're going to 1 minute review both of these films while trying not to compare them too much to each other, instead comparing them both to the book, because it was made clear that this 2020 version is not a remake of the 1940 version, it's adapting the book. But we're gonna fail, because I watched them back-to-back days, yesterday and today, so there's no way not to compare them after that. So Rebecca in 1940, directed by Alfred Hitchcock and starring Laurence, Olivier and Joan Fontaine, won the Best Picture Oscar Award, yeah, and has been acclaimed throughout the last 80 years as a masterpiece of the Gothic style.
Makes you wonder why the hell did you read that?
If nothing else, it's going, and it will always be remembered as being Alfred Hitchcock's first Hollywood film, but certainly not his last. I have to make some note of saying as well that Laurence Olivier's performance as Maxim de Winter is definitely, I'll hear nothing against this idea, this is canon in my head, it's definitely what inspired Cary Elwes's performance in The Princess Bride, and that's like my favourite film, so that was a real cool thing to see. Anyway, encapsulating so much about the style that Du Maurier conveyed in her novel, while diverging in some ways for sure, here's my 1 minute review for Rebecca 1940. I will say that there are certainly divergences from the book, but what it does so well is grab that gothic style and the loneliness of the lifestyle of our unnamed lead once she arrives at Manderley. She was so alone, and it felt slow-paced because her life was so dreary and slow-paced. That darkly lighted monochromatic style, it worked so brilliantly at conveying so much about how this should make the audience feel, and how much the book makes people feel while reading it. Hitchcock actually wanted to make more changes than he did in the end from the novel, but he didn't, except for, there's definitely a few. The major one being that part of the Hollywood code wouldn't allow spousal murder to go unpunished in a film, so he had to make it so that Maxim thought about killing her, but then her subsequent death was actually accidental. Rebecca is and feels like a masterpiece and classic, and I'm giving it 82 out of 100. I always find it more important, just personally, that a film kind of captures that style and the feelings of a book, as opposed to hitting the exact play-by-play points, you know? Which simply doesn't bode well for what we're going to talk about next, does it? Starring Lily James and Armie Hammer, this time directed by Ben Wheatley, Netflix's 2020 version of Rebecca is different. Yeah. While adapting the novel in what was said to be a more faithful manner, it also chose a different style, certainly. Here's my 1 minute review for Rebecca 2020.
You can't go on living in that big old house with a ghost! I don't believe in ghosts.
What in the name of Ben Wheatley, of all people, is not the person I expected to see turning Rebecca, one of the great gothic tales, into wishy-washy romantic melodrama. Look, I love Lily James. I love seeing her portray great, strong female characters. But is it really feminism to demand that every female character we see on the screen has to be strong? She's not a strong character, okay? She's just not. And the fact that this film so desperately tries to claw her into being a strong female lead ruins the entire original style of the novel. For me, she goes herself to London at the end after Maxim gets thrown in prison, which he did not. He was not thrown in prison in the book. They went, the two of them, together with the detective to go see the doctor in London and find out the truth. She snuck in instead to rescue her husband? What the I'm giving this, Rebecca, 65 out of 100, because if I set aside the fact that it's meant to be the book, and that they outright said it was going to be an exact adaptation of the book, then this is a well-acted, reasonably romantic drama. It just isn't gothic at all. It's so brightly coloured. That really irked me. That is all for this one, folks. Which version of Rebecca did you prefer? The Hitchcock one or the bad one? I mean the Wheatley one. But let me know what, and other stuff in the comments you'd like to see reviewed on the channel. And don't forget to subscribe, because Rebecca will come back for you if you don't.